Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the uh, host of The Journey. Today, I would like to just do a little bit of a reflection on um, an event a day that we designate to celebrate uh, fathers. Uh, I want to first start off with being sharing a little bit of gratitude for my own father. Uh, my first memories of my dad was when I was obviously a youngster, and not only was my dad bigger than life, that's probably because he was 6'1", 6'2", and a former college football player, former All State in football at Beloit Memorial back in the '60s. So he was always and had until my adult life always bigger than me, bigger than life. Um, and I remember looking at his old yearbooks and his old Letterman jacket and looking at the pictures of him playing football in high school and then later playing football at Iowa State. Um, and again, this impression in my mind of my dad was because he was a maintenance electrician at a local manufacturing industrial company in the Rockford area. He was an individual that um, again could fix anything, or at least gave it an attempt to fix anything. um, I remember one of the things that also stands out in my mind of not only his ability to fix things and make things and do things like that, but then also um, his athletic background, as well as his love for watching me compete in football and wrestling, and then later in bodybuilding, and being a fan from that aspect. And then grateful that he would take on a second job when I went to college, so that I would not have college debt for my undergraduate. I spent 2 years at a community college, and then with his assistance and my mom's assistance, they helped pay financially for my tuition and my rent when I went to Illinois State, and was able to, after 2 years of being there, was able to graduate debt free, so that when I later went back to graduate school, I was able to take care of that myself. So, this idea of being grateful for my dad, and then also grateful that in my early 20s, I got introduced to men's work, or psychology, or what we called back then in the late '80s, early '90s, was referred to as the men's movement. And I have been, not only was an integral part of my life and helped in my development and my healing, um, but it's also something that I have concentrated a lot of my clinical work toward doing, working with men, and how to be men of integrity in all their affairs and men of honor in all their relationships, regardless if that's with their parents or siblings, uh, or with their partners or with their offspring, as well as their relationship within the marketplace, or at work, either if they're an employer or employee. And so I've been running groups out of my office at KP since 1980, or since 1997, and they're weekly 2-hour groups. And so I've really enjoyed that process. I know that for me, that element of having a circle of men, a sacred space for men to learn the male mode of feeling, and then being able to learn how to be the man that I want to be, versus the imagery that I had in my head via TV or stories that I grew up around, and that those breaking down some of those stereotypes that real men don't cry, real men don't show weakness, don't ask questions because they should already know the answers. All those different types of things that were integral for me in my development, to be the best that I can be as a husband as well as a father, which leads to, for me, kind of another piece that I'm not only grateful to be a son, but that I'm also grateful for being a father. My oldest is 25. Caleb, I've mentioned him numerous times, and my daughter, 22. Um, I remember when he was born, when Caleb was born, and actually even before that, when Diane was, when she first found out she was pregnant, and during that time period, I clearly have memories of that, the specialness and the sacredness of that time period, and being dialed in on of thinking of him. We didn't know for sure that we were having a boy, meaning we never had any of those tests done to determine if it was a boy or girl. It's another story that I can talk about some other time of knowing slash sensing that I was going to have a son. Um, but uh, but upon his being born, upon his birth, and then 2.5 years later when Sierra was born, there was this time period that not only was super exciting as well as scary, and clearly, even though I was a social worker and had been a counselor for an extended period of time at that point, um, still we totally didn't know what we were doing. Um, but I know that being able to just really dial in and focus on them and try to block out the other distractions. And as I was speaking with my neighbor this morning, is that there definitely was an element of making it up as you are going along, and that you learn about yourself as your children, as I had Caleb and Sierra reflect back to me. I don't think, including currently, I don't think there was a favorite time for me, because each time period in their development was my favorite time. Um, it was amazing how each growth time period, or milestone that they would seek after or develop into, and then pass that milestone, that each time period or stage was a joy in itself, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. And as anybody who's a parent can understand, there was different obstacles that they had to face. Some of them were health, some of them were academic, some of them were social or inner relationship wise. But each of those stages, I am very grateful. And now them being young adults, and Caleb done with graduate school and now working as a social worker, as well as Sierra finish up her undergraduate degree and starting her master's in social work. Um, that being able to see them at this next stage, or this current stage in their life, has been also a joy, because the conversations are different, um, and they're bringing more and more to the table. So um, this particular talk today is really about reflecting on um, your father, and I know that each of us may have a different experience with that, and a lot of that may not have anything to do with you. It may have to do with choices that your father may have made. For some, that may be someone who is your biological father may not be the one who stepped up and was your dad. In that case, there may have been another male that stepped into that role, or another adult that stepped into that role. Um, but each of us, regardless of the role that uh, our father and dad had in our life, we do have that uh, aspect that we can be grateful for, as well as sometimes we may need to do, as we would say in counseling, to do work around. So again, this idea of being able to be grateful for what we have been given throughout our life, I would just invite us into that process. As always, I enjoy being with you and enjoy sharing some thoughts or reflections along my journey, and always. Always open and welcoming feedback and uh, of your thoughts as well. And you have a great week and look forward to being with you next week.